The sudden uproar among global fans intensified without warning, driven by an unexpected moment that unfolded in the latest episode of Are You Sure S2? A moment involving Jimin and Jungkook that left viewers questioning what they had just witnessed and why it carried such an unusual emotional weight. From the first minutes of the episode, there was already a sense that something unscripted was building, but no one predicted that a single interaction would dominate discussions across social platforms and push the entire fandom into a state of shock. What exactly happened between the two BTS members, and why did this particular scene feel distinctly different from their previous on-screen dynamics? The footage began harmlessly, almost too ordinary, giving no hint of the intense reaction it would spark. Yet, the tone shifted abruptly when the cameras captured Jimin and Jungkook engaging in an exchange that felt strikingly personal, almost as if the viewers were witnessing a moment never intended to be recorded. The unexpected shift caused many to pause the video, replay it, and ask whether they truly heard and saw what they thought they did. The unease grew stronger when Jungkook's expression briefly changed, suggesting a level of sincerity rarely shown in entertainment programs, prompting viewers to wonder why the atmosphere suddenly turned so serious. The tension reached its peak when Jimin responded with a line that felt both confrontational and intimate in equal measure. The scene carried a tone that was neither dramatic for the sake of TV nor casual enough to dismiss as friendly banter. It created an impression that something unspoken existed beneath the surface, leaving audiences grasping for clues about what triggered the sudden emotional undertone. Why did Jungkook pause for a moment before replying? Why did Jimin look unusually affected, as though the conversation struck a nerve deeper than the show typically reveals? As the interaction continued, the air between them appeared to thicken, and viewers immediately sensed that the production team did not anticipate such an intense reaction. This became evident when the camera hesitated, zooming awkwardly as if unsure whether to maintain focus or cut away. The uncertainty mirrored the audience's own confusion, fueling theories about whether the two members were addressing an unresolved issue, recalling a private memory, or reacting to something that had happened off-screen before filming started. The ambiguity only amplified the shock. The moment that truly sent fans spiraling occurred when Jungkook made a remark that sounded almost like an admission, delivered in a tone far quieter than his usual on-camera casualness. The statement was brief, but the implications felt enormous, enough to make viewers question whether it was meant for Jimin, the audience, or someone entirely else. Jimin's reaction, a subtle shift in posture followed by a stare that lingered too long, instantly ignited speculation. Why did he look startled? Why did his demeanor soften immediately afterward? The unanswered questions created a sense of urgency that compelled fans to rewatch the scene repeatedly. What made the situation even more intriguing was the distinct silence that followed. The room seemed to freeze as neither Jimin nor Jungkook attempted to break the tension with humor, something they routinely do. Instead, the pause grew heavier, as though both were contemplating whether the conversation had crossed into territory too candid for public viewing. The absence of background music, perhaps unintentionally, made the entire exchange feel raw and unfiltered, pushing fans to the edge of their seats as they tried to interpret the meaning behind every gesture and expression. Even when the mood eventually shifted back to its typical lighthearted tone, the earlier moment remained impossible to ignore. It overshadowed the rest of the episode, becoming the singular focal point for countless discussions, breakdowns, and emotional reactions online. Many viewers expressed bewilderment at the depth of the interaction, questioning how a reality show designed to be simple and relaxed ended up producing one of the most emotionally charged scenes between the two members in recent memory. Was it a slip of honesty, a shared memory resurfacing unexpectedly, or something entirely different? The more fans attempted to rationalize the scene, the more questions emerged. Why did the production team choose to leave the moment unedited? Did they understand the impact it would have? And if the scene truly was spontaneous, what does it reveal about the bond between Jimin and Jungkook at this stage of their careers? The absence of clear answers only deepened the intrigue, pushing many to speculate whether future episodes would address the tension or leave it unresolved, hanging in the minds of viewers who now anticipate every subtle exchange with heightened curiosity. For now, the scene stands as one of the most discussed moments in Are You Sure S2, not because of dramatic action or scripted surprises, but because of its unexplained authenticity. It is rare for such a brief interaction to carry so much emotional density that it shifts the entire tone of a program. Yet, that is exactly what happened. And the question that continues to echo among armies worldwide remains simple but persistent. What exactly were Jimin and Jungkook caught doing in that moment that felt too real to ignore? And why did it shock so many so quickly? The intensity surrounding the unexpected interaction in Are You Sure S2 did not fade even after the initial shock settled. Instead, the reaction grew more complex as viewers re-examined the sequence with heightened scrutiny. What initially appeared as a brief emotional shift evolved into a subject of global conversation, and each revisit to the footage revealed nuances that many had overlooked in their first viewing. This has raised the question of whether the moment was truly accidental or whether it reflected an underlying sentiment between Jimin and Jungkook that had not surfaced publicly in years. As fans dissected every frame, their attention gravitated toward the tone of Jungkook's voice during that pivotal remark, subdued, deliberate, and markedly different from his typical manner of communication on camera. There was an almost imperceptible moment in which he seemed to hesitate, as though carefully calculating the weight of his next words. The silence that followed added to the gravity of the situation, creating a tension that contrastingly felt out of place for a travel-style reality show designed for comfort and casual banter. Even longtime viewers who closely follow the duo's interactions admitted that this was unlike anything previously broadcast. Jimin's response also carried an unusual delicacy. The slight tightening of his jaw, the controlled exhale, and the sudden shift in his eyes conveyed a reaction that was not easily interpreted. It was as though the remark struck him with an intensity he did not anticipate. Observers noticed how his posture subtly changed, his shoulders drawing inward, signaling an emotional impact that could not be ignored. The absence of typical humor or light teasing, something Jimin often uses to steer interactions away from seriousness, became one of the most telling details of the entire encounter. What followed only deepened the intrigue. The energy in the room shifted visibly, prompting viewers to question how both members managed to maintain composure despite the evidently heavy atmosphere. The camera's decision to linger, rather than cut away, amplified the discomfort and drew the audience further into the moment. Many speculated that the production team, perhaps sensing the significance of the interaction, deliberately allowed the scene to unfold without interruption. Yet others argued that the hesitation from the camera operators hinted at genuine uncertainty regarding whether the moment should even be televised. The lack of verbal follow-up from both members left fans grappling with the scene's implications. The two often display a natural ease around each other, one characterized by familiarity and trust, but the sudden seriousness felt like an abrupt departure from their usual dynamic. This contrast led viewers to wonder whether something unsaid had lingered between them for a long time, something that finally slipped through the controlled environment of filming. Was it a resurfacing of past tension, a moment of unguarded honesty, or had the atmosphere of the day already been emotionally charged before filming began? Attempts to decode the exchange grew more intense as fans analyzed micro-expressions, background noises, and even the surrounding objects on the table, hoping they might provide context for the abrupt shift. Some pointed out how Jungkook's hands tightened slightly around his drink, while others noted how Jimin kept briefly glancing downward, avoiding direct eye contact in a way that suggested internal weighing of thoughts or emotions. The entire online discourse evolved into an exhaustive examination of gestures, tone, and atmosphere, all driven by a collective desire to understand what exactly had transpired between the two. Despite the growing number of theories, one undeniable fact persisted. The moment did not feel scripted, rehearsed, or designed for entertainment value. It had the distinct quality of authenticity, raw, unsmoothed, and unaffected by typical broadcast polish. Viewers sensed that something spontaneous had slipped through the cracks of production. This authenticity, while powerful, also created a sense of intrusion, as though the audience had been allowed to witness a conversation that was never meant to be aired. As discussion spread across online communities, the moment became a focal point of emotional reaction among fans. Many expressed discomfort at how vulnerable the interaction felt, while others expressed concern about what might have prompted such a heavy emotional exchange. Some urged others to avoid over-speculating, cautioning that drawing exaggerated conclusions about their relationship could misinterpret the situation. However, the overwhelming majority agreed on one point: the intensity of the exchange could not be easily dismissed. Another layer of complexity emerged as viewers began to compare the episode with earlier footage from previous seasons and other content featuring the duo. Patterns began to surface, Subtle interactions, small hesitations, brief glances, which retroactively took on new meaning in light of this recent moment. Fans began asking whether these earlier signs had always been present but overlooked, or whether the dynamic between the two had shifted over time, culminating in this unusually candid on-screen exchange. The broader cultural impact also became evident as media analysts and observers commented on the moment. While no official interpretation was provided, the scene was widely discussed as an example of how unscripted emotional transparency could dramatically alter the tone of a program. Observers highlighted how rare it is for high-profile entertainers, especially those under immense public scrutiny, to display such unfiltered reactions within a filmed environment. Many argued that the emotional depth of the moment stemmed precisely from its spontaneous nature, a rare break in the carefully maintained public image that celebrities are often required to uphold. Even with all the discussions, what remains most striking is how a moment that lasted mere seconds was able to overshadow an entire episode. The rest of the content, though entertaining and well-produced, felt almost secondary in comparison to the emotional weight carried by that single exchange. Viewers found themselves returning to the scene repeatedly, each time noticing details they had missed before. This relentless re-examination has only heightened the intensity of fan reactions, with many expressing that the moment will likely be remembered as one of the most impactful across both seasons of the show. Whether intentional or accidental,